My wife is never going to believe a crazy old woman. That was the last sentence my son-in-law said before he realized he had underestimated the wrong woman. That morning started like any other, with the smell of fresh coffee in my kitchen and the soft light coming through the window. I did not know that in a few hours my life and my daughter's life would change forever. I did not know that I would see the true face of a man I had welcomed as a son. And I did not know that a simple key in my hands would become the most powerful weapon I had ever held. My name is Sophia Miller. I am 59 years old, and this story began the day I decided to arrive early at my daughter's house to organize a surprise party. A party that never happened, because sometimes life has a very cruel way of showing you the truth just when you least expect it. Emily, my daughter, had been married to Michael for 5 years. 5 years in which I had tried to see in him the good man, the hard-working husband, the respectful son-in-law. 5 years in which I ignored the small signs that now looking back shine like warnings I never wanted to read. Because a mother always wants to believe that her daughter chose well, always wants to believe that the man sleeping next to her is worthy of her trust. But that morning, everything changed. It was a sunny day. I remember I got up early as always. I made my coffee. I sat by the window and watched the neighborhood wake up little by little. The birds were singing in the ash tree in the yard. The neighbor across the street was watering her geraniums. Everything was normal. Everything was peaceful, and I was naive enough to think it would stay that way. Emily had asked me for help organizing a special dinner. It was Michael's birthday, and she wanted to surprise him with something intimate, something familiar. She had given me a copy of her house key months ago for emergencies. She said, "Mom, you never know when you might need to get in." She had told me with that smile she inherited from her father. That key hung on my keychain next to the others, without me knowing that soon it would become the proof that God puts things in their place. Always, in ways we never imagine. That morning I grabbed my bag. I checked that I had everything needed to decorate. Balloons, streamers, some nice candles I had bought at the store. Emily would arrive later with the cake. I would set everything up so that when she arrived, she would only have to enjoy herself. That is what mothers do, right? We anticipate, we sacrifice, we take care, and sometimes without meaning to, we also discover. I arrived at Emily's house around 10 in the morning. The sun was already high and the street was quiet. I parked my car in the driveway and took the bags from the back seat. The house was small but cozy, with a front garden that Emily tended to with care. The climbing roses grew along the fence and the clay pots rested by the door. Everything looked in order. Everything looked perfect. I took out the key and opened the door slowly, trying not to make noise. I did not want to ruin the surprise in case Michael was inside. But when I entered, the house was silent, a strange silence, dense, as if something was holding its breath. I left the bags on the living room table and looked around. Everything was clean, tidy. The wedding photo of Emily and Michael hung on the wall, smiling, innocent, as if the future was a promise fulfilled. I felt a pang in my chest. I did not know why, but something in that silence made me uncomfortable. Then I heard it, a laugh, low, stifled, coming from the back of the house. I froze. My heart began to beat faster. I thought maybe it was the television, or maybe Michael was on the phone. I walked slowly down the hallway, following the sound. My steps were soft on the wooden floor, and then in front of the bathroom door, I stopped. The door was closed, but from inside came voices. 2 voices, one of a man, another of a woman, and neither of them was my daughter's voice. My hand was trembling when I knocked on the door. I knocked softly, almost unintentionally, and immediately, silence took over the other side. A guilty silence, a silence that screams louder than any confession. "Who is it?" asked Michael's voice, tense, nervous. "It is me." "Sophia," I replied, and my voice came out firmer than I expected. There was a muffled murmur, quick steps, the sound of clothes moving, and then, after what seemed like an eternity, the door opened, and there he was, my son-in-law, with his shirt buttoned wrong, his hair messy, and an expression that tried to be innocent but betrayed every guilt in the world. And behind him, sitting on the edge of the bathtub, was her, Linda, Michael's cousin, the woman who had been at our table so many times, the one who had hugged Emily at her wedding, the one who had toasted to her happiness with a glass raised high and a perfect smile. And now she was there, adjusting her dress, with red lips still shiny and eyes avoiding mine. I said nothing. I did not have to say anything. The truth was there, hanging in the air like a weight that none of the three of us could hold. Michael was the first to speak, and what he said was proof that he had forgotten who he was dealing with. He walked up to me, looked me straight in the eyes, and with a cynical smile I will never forget, said, "Look, Sophia, I know this looks bad, but it is not what you think. And anyway," he paused, and his smile became crueler. "My wife is never going to believe a crazy old woman." The world stopped. Those words fell on me like stones, not because they hurt me, but because they showed me in a second who this man really was. He was not the kind son-in-law. He was not the devoted husband. He was a predator who believed he could manipulate, deceive, destroy, and who believed that I, because I was older, because I was a woman, because I was a mother, was invisible, harmless, insignificant. Linda looked down. She said nothing, because cowards never speak when they are discovered, and I, Sophia Miller, 59 years old, mother, woman, witness to that betrayal, did something they never expected. I walked out of the bathroom, closed the door slowly, and with the key hanging on my keychain, the same key my daughter had given me with trust. I turned the lock. I locked them in. I heard the immediate banging. Michael's voice, now without a smile, screaming my name. Linda's voice begging me to open. But I was no longer listening. I walked to the living room, took out my phone, and dialed 2 numbers. The first one, my daughter's. The second one, David's, Linda's husband. And while I waited for them to answer, I sat on the sofa, crossed my hands on my lap, and took a deep breath, because I knew that what would come next would not be easy, but I also knew that the time had come for the truth to come to light. And that a crazy old woman could be much more dangerous than any traitor would ever imagine. To understand why what I did that morning was so important, I need to go back a little in time. I need you to meet my daughter. I need you to understand who Emily was before Michael came into her life. Because mothers remember. We remember every laugh, every dream, every promise our daughters made when the world was still a safe place. Emily was born on a rainy afternoon. I was 26 years old and had just moved with my husband to a small house on the outskirts of the city. I raised her alone after my husband died in a car accident when she was barely 8 years old. It was a blow that neither of us recovered from easily, but we learned to hold each other up. We learned that pain does not kill you if you have someone to hug, and we became everything to each other, mother and daughter, friends, accomplices. When Emily turned 18, she entered college to study business administration. She was disciplined, responsible, a dreamer. She wanted to have her own business one day. She wanted to show the world that a woman could stand on her own without depending on anyone. And I was so proud of her, so proud that sometimes my chest hurt from so much love. It was in college where she met Michael. He was studying engineering. He was tall, with an easy smile, with that confidence that men who know how to talk have. Emily introduced him to me one Sunday afternoon. They arrived at the house together holding hands, and she had that light in her eyes that only a woman in love has, a light that made me feel happy and sad at the same time. Happy because my daughter had found someone. Sad because I knew she would no longer be just mine. "Mom, this is Michael," she told me, and her voice trembled a little with emotion. Michael extended his hand. His grip was firm, his gaze direct. He told me he was delighted to meet me, that he had heard a lot about me, that Emily did nothing but talk about her mom, and I, being naive, believed every word. The first years were good, or at least that is what it seemed. Michael visited our house frequently. We shared meals on Sundays. He helped with the grocery bags, fixed things that broke in the house, asked me how my week had been, and little by little I began to see him as part of the family, as the son I never had. Emily and Michael got married when she was 26. It was a simple wedding, in the garden of a venue we rented outside the city. Emily wore a white dress we had chosen together, with lace on the sleeves and a long train that dragged on the grass. She was beautiful, radiant. And when Michael took her hand in front of the altar and promised to love and respect her every day of his life, I saw tears in my daughter's eyes. And I also saw mine reflected in the mirror when I got ready that morning. Because a mother never gives her daughter away without something breaking inside, even if she is happy for her, even if she trusts the man who receives her. There is always a piece of you that stays in the past, in that little girl who ran barefoot through the house, in that teenager who asked for advice on everything, in that young woman who now looks at you from the altar as if saying, "Mom, I am scared too, but I am going to try." After the wedding, Emily and Michael moved into that small house with the climbing roses. I visited them often, brought food, helped them clean. I stayed for coffee with Emily while Michael was at work, and my daughter told me her plans. She wanted to open a clothing store. She wanted to travel. She wanted to have children someday. "Do you think I will be a good mother, Mom?" She asked me once while we were sitting in her small kitchen. "You will be the best." I answered her, and I meant it from my heart. But over time, I began to notice things. Small things, details that at first seemed insignificant, but together they formed a pattern I did not like. Michael came home late. He always had an excuse: work meeting, traffic, a difficult client. Emily justified him. "He is working hard for us, Mom." She would tell me, and I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that my daughter had chosen well, but there was something in the way Michael looked at her when she was not looking. Something cold, distant, as if he was there but not really, as if his mind was somewhere else, with someone else. And then there was Linda. Linda was Michael's cousin. They had grown up together, he told me once. They were very close. She came to visit them from time to time, always dressed up, always wearing perfume, always with that smile that seemed to say more than her words expressed. Emily received her with affection. "She is like my sister-in-law," she would tell me, and I saw how Linda sat too close to Michael, how she touched his arm when she spoke, how he laughed at her jokes with a familiarity that made me uncomfortable. But I never said anything, because I had no proof, because I did not want to be that meddling mother-in-law, because I thought maybe it was just my imagination. And now, 5 years later, sitting on that sofa with the phone in my hand, I realized that it had not been my imagination, that all those signs, all those awkward moments, all those strange silences had been real, and that I should have spoken up. Emily answered on the third ring, "Mom." Her voice sounded cheerful, carefree. "Are you at the house already? How is everything going?" I took a deep breath, and with the calmest voice I could muster, I said, "Honey, I need you to come now. It is urgent." There was a silence on the other end, and then her voice changed. It became tense, worried. "What happened, Mom? Are you okay? I am fine, but I need you to come. Now. I am on my way," she said, and hung up. Then I dialed the second number, David's number, Linda's husband. David was a quiet man, hard-working, One of those who go unnoticed but hold everything together with their quiet hands. I had met him at family gatherings, always polite, always attentive, always by Linda's side even though she barely looked at him. And now, while I waited for him to answer, I wondered if he had also noticed the signs, if he had also had that feeling that something was not right. He answered on the second ring. "Hello, David. It is Sophia, Emily's mother. Ah, Sophia. How are you?" His voice sounded surprised but kind. "I need you to come to Emily's house. Now, it is important." There was a pause, and then his voice became serious. "Did something happen?" "Yes. Something you need to see with your own eyes." He did not ask more. He just said, "I am on my way," and hung up. I left the phone on the table. From the back of the house, I could still hear the banging on the bathroom door. Michael's voice, now desperate, screaming for me to let him out. Linda's voice, crying, begging. But I did not move. I stayed sitting there, with my hands crossed on my lap, looking at Emily's wedding photo hanging on the wall, that photo where my daughter smiled as if the world was a fair place, as if promises were kept, as if love was enough. And I thought about all the times I had remained silent, all the times I had swallowed my doubts because I did not want to be a burden, because I did not want to ruin my daughter's happiness. But now I knew the truth, and I was never going to be silent again. The next 20 minutes were the longest of my life. I sat on that sofa, listening to the increasingly desperate blows coming from the bathroom. Michael was yelling. Linda was crying. But their voices sounded distant, as if they came from another world, a world where consequences did not yet exist, a world where they thought they could escape. But that world was about to collapse. I looked at the clock on the wall. The hands moved slowly, as if time itself knew it was witnessing something important. 10:30 in the morning. Emily would arrive any moment. David, too. And when they did, everything would change. Not just for them, for all of us. I stood up from the sofa and walked to the window. From there, I could see the street. The sun shone on the pavement. A stray dog crossed from one sidewalk to the other. Life went on, oblivious to the drama that was about to explode within these four walls, and I thought about how many times I had been in that same house, sharing meals, laughs, celebrations. How many times I had believed that everything was fine, but fractures are not always visible. Sometimes they start as small cracks, so fine you do not even notice them, and only when the whole building collapses do you understand that the foundation had been breaking for years. The first fracture, now that I think about it, happened almost 2 years ago. It was at a family dinner. Emily and Michael had invited several relatives over to celebrate their wedding anniversary. I arrived early to help Emily with the food. We were in the kitchen preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. "That must be Linda and David," Emily said, wiping her hands on her apron. "Go open it, Mom. I will finish here." I went to the door and opened it. There they were, Linda, as always, impeccable. She wore a fitted wine-colored dress, high heels, her hair up in an elegant bun. David was by her side, dressed in a white shirt and dark pants, carrying a bottle of wine and a bouquet of flowers. Sophia. "So good to see you," Linda said, giving me a kiss on the cheek. Her perfume was strong, sweet, almost overwhelming. Come in," I told them, stepping aside. David smiled at me with that quiet kindness that characterized him and handed me the flowers. "For Emily," he said. "I hope she likes them. She's going to love them," I replied, taking them. "Thank you, David." Linda walked into the house as if it were hers. She walked straight to the living room where Michael was arranging some chairs. And what I saw next was what I should have questioned at that moment. But I did not. Because sometimes, when you do not want to see something, you convince yourself it is not there. Linda approached Michael and hugged him. It was not a normal hug. It was not the typical greeting between cousins. It was long. Too long. And when they separated, I saw how her hand stayed on his chest a second longer than necessary. I saw how he smiled at her, a smile that was not familial. It was intimate. David said nothing. He just stood at the entrance of the living room holding the bottle of wine with an expression I could not read at that moment. But now looking back, I think it was resignation, as if he already knew, as if he had already seen that scene so many times that it did not even hurt anymore. That night, we all had dinner together. There were laughs, toasts, stories. Emily was happy. Michael was the center of attention, telling jokes, pouring wine, being the perfect host, and Linda was always close to him, too close. She passed him the dishes, refilled his glass. She laughed at everything he said with a high-pitched laugh that drilled into my ears. I watched from my place at the table, and every time I looked at David, I saw him doing the same. Watching. Silent. With that silent sadness of men who have learned not to say anything because they know no one will listen. After dinner, while Emily and I were clearing the plates in the kitchen, she said to me, "Linda is so cool, right, Mom? I love that Michael has such close family." I just nodded. I did not say what I was thinking. I did not say that something about the way Linda looked at Michael disturbed me. I did not say that it seemed strange to me that a married cousin acted that way with her cousin who was also married. I said nothing, because I did not want to be that mother-in-law who sees problems where there are none, because I did not want to worry my daughter, because I thought maybe it was just my imagination. But it was not. The second fracture came a few months later. Emily called me one afternoon crying. Her voice sounded broken, desperate. My heart raced immediately. "Mom, can you come?" she said between sobs. "What happened, honey? Are you okay? Just come, please." I dropped everything I was doing and drove to her house as fast as I could. When I arrived, I found her sitting on the living room sofa with red and swollen eyes, hugging a cushion to her chest. I sat next to her and hugged her. "What happened?" "My love." She took a deep breath, trying to calm down. "Michael and I had a horrible fight. Why?" She hesitated, as if she did not know how to say it, because I found messages on his phone. My heart stopped. What kind of messages with Linda? My blood ran cold. What did they say? Nothing. Nothing explicit, but they were messages that were too affectionate, too close. She told him things like, "I miss you and when will we see each other?" And when I asked him, he got angry. He told me I was exaggerating, that Linda is his cousin, that they have always been very close, that I have no right to be jealous of his family. I clenched my fists. "And what did you say to him?" I told him that it did not seem normal to me, that cousins do not talk like that it made me feel uncomfortable. And he... Her voice broke. He told me I was insecure, that I was inventing problems, that if I continued like this, I was going to ruin our marriage. Rage rose up my throat like fire, but I held back because my daughter needed support, not more conflict. "Emily, listen to me well. You are not inventing anything. If something makes you uncomfortable, you have every right to say it, and a husband who loves you would not make you feel bad for expressing your feelings." She looked at me with those eyes full of tears, those eyes I had known since she was a little girl. "But Mom, what if he is right? What if I am just being paranoid?" "You are not paranoid, honey. You are a woman who is noticing things that are not right. And that is not weakness, it is intuition." But Emily did not listen to me. Or maybe she did not want to listen to me. Because a few hours later, Michael arrived with a bouquet of roses. He asked for forgiveness. He told her he loved her, that he would never talk to her like that again, that she was the most important thing in his life. And my daughter, like so many women, forgave him. Because love sometimes blinds us. It makes us believe that apologies erase wounds. It makes us think that a rose can cover a lie, and the fractures keep growing, in silence, in the dark. until one day everything collapses. The sound of a car parking in front of the house pulled me out of my memories. I looked out the window and saw Emily's car. My daughter got out of the car in a hurry, with a face full of worry. She walked to the door, and before she could ring the bell, I had already opened it. "Mom, what happened?" she said, entering the house. I took her hands. They were cold, trembling. "Sit down, honey. I do not want to sit down. Tell me what happened." I took a deep breath, and before I could answer, we heard another car. David had just arrived. He got out of the car with quick, serious steps. When he entered the house, he looked me straight in the eyes. "Where is my wife?" I did not have to answer, because at that moment from the back of the house, a scream was heard. "David, get us out of here, please." It was Linda's voice. Emily looked at me with eyes wide open, confused, scared. "Mom, what is happening?" And I, with the firmest voice I had ever used, said to her, "What I should have told you a long time ago, daughter. The truth." Emily looked at me as if she did not recognize me. As if the words I had just said were a strange language her brain refused to translate. David, on the other hand, had already understood. I saw it in the way he clenched his jaw, in the way his hands closed into fists at his sides. "What truth?" Mom Emily asked, and her voice trembled. But before I could answer, the screams from the bathroom intensified. Michael was banging on the door hard. Linda was crying, begging, and David started walking toward the hallway with firm, determined steps. "David, wait," I said, standing in his way. "I need you to see this calmly." He stopped, looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something that surprised me. It was not surprise. It was not confusion. It was confirmation, as if what he was about to discover was something he already knew, something he had been denying for a long time. "How long have they been like this?" he asked me, and his voice sounded tired, defeated. "I do not know," I answered honestly. But today I found them together, in the bathroom, locked in. Emily let out a choked sound, a moan that came from deep in her chest. She put her hands to her mouth and took a step back, as if my words were a physical blow. "No," she whispered. "No, Mom. There has to be an explanation. Michael would not..." He would not do that, not to me, and there it was, denial. That automatic reaction women have when someone shows us a truth we do not want to accept, because accepting it means that everything we believed, everything we trusted, everything we fought for, was a lie, and that hurts more than any betrayal. "Honey, I saw them." I told her, getting closer to her. "I saw them with my own eyes." But her eyes filled with tears. Maybe they were talking. Maybe Linda had a problem and Michael was helping her. Maybe Emily. David's voice cut her words like a knife. "Do not look for excuses. I have seen things too, for a long time, and I always found ways to justify them. But deep down, I always knew." My daughter looked at him, with her face bathed in tears. What things she asked, although I think she did not want to know the answer. David took a deep breath, and for the first time I saw him vulnerable, broken. The messages, the late-night calls, the times Linda came home late smelling of a perfume that was not hers, the excuses, always the excuses. He paused, and the times she mentioned Michael's name. Too many times, with too much familiarity. Emily shook her head, as if she could erase reality with that gesture. No, this cannot be happening. But it was happening, and the screams from the bathroom were the proof. "Sophia, open this damn door," Michael shouted, and there was no trace left of that cynical smile he had shown me before. Now there was only panic, fear. David walked toward the hallway. Emily and I followed him, and when we arrived in front of the bathroom door, we stopped, the three of us, as if crossing that door was crossing a point of no return. "Open it," David said, looking at me. I took the key out of my pocket. My hands were no longer trembling. They were steady. because I knew that what I was doing was right, that keeping them locked in those minutes had been necessary, because sometimes the truth needs time to arrive, needs witnesses, needs the right people to be present so it cannot be denied, twisted, manipulated. I turned the key in the lock and opened the door. The first thing I saw was Linda. She was sitting on the edge of the bathtub, with her face composed, makeup running from tears, hair messy. She was no longer the impeccable woman who had entered this house so many times with that perfect smile. Now she was just a woman, trapped in her own lie. And then there was Michael, standing, with his shirt still buttoned wrong, with his hair messy, and when he saw Emily standing in the doorway, something in his expression changed. He tried to compose himself. He tried to find the words, but there were no words that could fix this. "Emily, my love," he said, taking a step toward her. "This is not what it looks like." My daughter backed away, as if his closeness burned her. "Do not come near me," she told him, and her voice sounded hollow. "Dead." "Honey, please let me explain. Explain what Emily shouted." And it was the first time I heard her shout like that, with that rage mixed with pain that only comes from betrayal. "Explain why you were locked in the bathroom with her. Explain why your clothes are like that. Explain why my mother had to lock you in so you would not escape." Michael opened his mouth, closed it, searched for an answer that did not exist. Me. We were just talking. "Do not treat me like an idiot." Emily interrupted him. "Do not insult me more than you already have." Linda began to cry louder from the bathtub. David entered the bathroom and stood in front of her. He said nothing, only looked at her, and that silence was more devastating than any scream. "David," Linda began to say, but he raised a hand asking her to shut up. "No," he said, and his voice was cold, distant. "I do not want to hear you, not now, maybe never." He took his phone out of his pocket and began to take photos of Linda, of Michael, of the bathroom, of everything. "What are you doing?" Linda asked with eyes wide open. "What I should have done a long time ago," David replied without looking up from the phone, documenting the truth. "Because I know that tomorrow you are going to try to deny it. You are going to say it was all a misunderstanding. You are going to invent excuses. But these photos are going to speak for me when my lawyer presents them." Linda turned pale. "Lawyer, yes, lawyer. I am filing for divorce, and I am going to fight for everything, for the house, for the business, for every dollar I invested in this farce of a marriage. And these photos are going to ensure I get it." Linda collapsed. She let herself fall to the floor, crying, begging. But David was no longer looking at her. He was done, and it showed. Emily, meanwhile, was still standing in the doorway looking at Michael, and he tried to approach again. "Emily, please listen to me. This was a mistake, a moment of weakness. But you are the one I love. You are my wife. I already called my lawyer," Emily said, and her voice sounded strangely calm, too calm. Michael froze. "What?" "While I was coming here, I called my lawyer. I told him what my mom told me, and he told me to document everything, not to let you leave this house until the police arrived if necessary, to get witnesses." She paused and looked him straight in the eyes. "And now that I see you here, with her, in this way, I know I was right to call." Michael took a step back as if Emily's words were blows. "Emily, you cannot do this. We are a marriage. We can fix it. We can go to therapy. We can nothing," she interrupted him. "Because there is no longer an us. There is no longer a marriage. There is only a man who betrayed his wife with her own cousin, and a woman who was stupid enough to believe in him for 5 years. Do not say that," Michael said. And now his voice sounded desperate. "You are not stupid. You are. I want you to get out of my house. Now. Emily. Now, Michael. Take your things and leave. And do not come back. ever. The silence that followed was so dense it hurt to breathe. Michael looked at her, searched her eyes for some sign of doubt, some crack to slip through. But he did not find it, because my daughter in that moment stopped being the submissive woman who had justified strange messages, who had silenced her doubts, who had swallowed her pain to keep the peace. In that moment, Emily became what she should have always been, a woman who does not accept crumbs, a woman who does not negotiate her dignity. Michael walked out of the bathroom, passed by Emily without looking at her, walked to the bedroom they had shared for 5 years, and began to take clothes out of the closet, to throw things into a suitcase. While we watched him in silence, Linda tried to get up, but David stopped her. "You stay here," he told her, "until I decide what to do with you." Meanwhile, I watched my daughter. I saw how tears ran down her face. I saw how her body trembled. But I also saw something else. I saw strength. I saw determination. I saw a woman who was breaking, but who was not giving up. I approached her and hugged her, and when her head rested on my shoulder, she whispered, "Did I do right, Mom?" "You did the right thing, honey, and that is the only thing that matters." Michael came out of the room with a suitcase in his hand. He stopped in front of Emily, tried to say something, but she raised a hand, silencing him. "Goodbye, Michael," she said, "and may God forgive you, because I am not going to." He looked down and without saying anything else left the house. The door closed behind him with a sound that seemed to seal the end of an era. David helped Linda up. She was still crying, muttering apologies no one wanted to hear. "We are leaving," David told her, "and when we get home, you are going to pack your things, because tomorrow I start the divorce proceedings." Linda tried to cling to his arm, but he shook her off firmly. "Please, David, please forgive me." "No," he said, and it was the clearest answer he had given in years. "This is over." They left the house, and when the door closed for the second time, Emily collapsed. She let herself fall to the floor, crying, screaming, releasing all the pain she had been holding back, and I knelt beside her, hugged her, held her. Because that is what mothers do. We hold on, even if we are broken too, even if we are scared too, because we know that after the storm comes the calm, and that women who learn to let go of what hurts them are the ones who find peace. While I tell all this, I think about where you might be listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. That night, I stayed with Emily. I could not leave her alone, not after what had happened. When she finally stopped crying, when her body stopped shaking, I helped her up from the floor and took her to the sofa. I made her chamomile tea, the same one I made her when she was a little girl and had nightmares, and I sat next to her in silence, because sometimes words are unnecessary. Outside, night had fallen. The streetlights turned on one by one. The world kept turning as if nothing had happened. But inside that house, everything had changed. My daughter's marriage had ended. The family she had built with so much love had crumbled in a matter of minutes. And now, in the silence of that living room, began the real work. Picking up the pieces. Emily held the cup of tea in her hands, staring at the hot liquid without drinking it. "When did you know, Mom?" She asked me suddenly without looking up. "Know what, honey, that something was not right. That Michael, that he was not the man I thought he was." I sighed. It was a difficult question because the truth was complicated. A while ago, I admitted, but I was not sure. I only had feelings, discomforts, small things I could not prove, but that unsettled me. Why did you never tell me anything? I looked into her eyes, those eyes I knew so well, those eyes that had looked at me with trust for 31 years, because I did not want to be that meddling mother who ruins her daughter's happiness over suspicions, because I thought maybe I was wrong, because I stopped feeling the weight of guilt, because I was afraid that if I told you something and I was wrong, you would push me out of your life. Emily put the cup on the table. She turned to me and took my hands. "Mom, listen to me well. You are not to blame for anything. None of this is your responsibility. Michael is the only one to blame. He and Linda, they chose to betray us. They chose to lie. You just protected me, like you always have." Her words broke me. The tears I had been holding back all day finally came out, and we both cried together, hugged, releasing the pain we had carried in silence. When we calmed down, Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and took a deep breath. "I need to know how long," she said, and her voice sounded firmer. "I need to know since when they were lying to me. I do not know if that will help you, honey. Maybe not, but I need to know anyway. I need to understand. I need to understand how much of my life was real and how much was a lie." I nodded, because I understood her. Because when you are betrayed, you need answers, even if those answers hurt. "Do you want to go through his things?" I asked her. She looked at me, hesitating, and then nodded. We got up from the sofa and walked to the bedroom. The room Emily had shared with Michael for 5 years. The room where they had slept together, where they had dreamed together, where they had planned a future that was now broken into 1,000 pieces. Emily turned on the light. The bed was unmade. Michael's suitcase had left the closet half empty, but there were still things left: clothes, papers, personal objects he had not had time to take. "Where do I start?" Emily murmured, looking around with a mixture of pain and determination. "Wherever your instinct tells you," I replied. She walked to the nightstand on Michael's side, opened the first drawer. There were papers, receipts, an old wallet, keys he no longer used, nothing important. She opened the second drawer, more of the same, and then the third. And that is when she found it. An envelope. White. Nameless. Hidden under some work documents. Emily took it out with trembling hands. She looked at me. "Do I open it?" "It is your decision, honey." She took a deep breath and opened it. Inside were photos, many photos, and when Emily took them out, her face fell apart. They were photos of Michael and Linda, together, in places Emily did not recognize, in restaurants and hotels, on the beach, hugging, kissing, smiling as if they were a real couple. "Oh my God," Emily whispered, and her voice sounded like something inside her was breaking. "Oh my God, Mom, look at the dates." I took the photos from her hands because I saw she was about to crumble, and when I saw them, I understood why. The photos had dates printed on the back, and the dates were from 3 years ago. 3 years. That meant the betrayal was not recent. It was not a one-night mistake. It was not a moment of weakness. It was a relationship, a parallel relationship that had been existing behind Emily's back for years. 3 years, Emily said, and began to laugh. But it was not a laugh of joy. It was a bitter laugh. Broken, full of pain. 3 years, Mom. 3 damn years he was lying to me. 3 years he was sleeping with me, telling me he loved me, planning a future with me while he had another life with her. She let herself fall onto the bed, holding the photos against her chest. How could I be so blind? How did I not realize I sat next to her and stroked her hair? Because you trusted him, honey. Because when you love someone, you are not looking for reasons to distrust. You are looking for reasons to believe. And he used that against you. Emily shook her head, crying. "I should have known. I should have insisted more when I found those messages. I should have investigated. I should have—" "No," I interrupted her firmly. "Do not do that. Do not blame yourself for someone else's evil. You did what any woman who loves would do. You trusted. You believed. You forgave. And there is nothing wrong with that. The wrong is what he did not, what you failed to do." Emily remained silent, absorbing my words, and then with a sudden movement she got up from the bed. "I need to keep looking," she said. "I need to know everything." She opened the closet, checked the pockets of the shirts Michael had left, checked the boxes on the top shelf. She searched every corner of that room as if she were a detective looking for clues to a crime. And in a way she was. And she found more things. She found hotel receipts, receipts from expensive restaurants where supposedly Michael was in work meetings. She found invoices for gifts, perfumes, jewelry, clothes, all for Linda, this necklace. Emily said, holding an invoice. He told me it was for his mom, for her birthday, and I believed him. I believed everything. She kept searching, and at the bottom of the closet under a shoebox she found something else, a phone, an old phone that Michael had supposedly stopped using. Emily turned it on. It still had battery, and when the screen lit up, there was no password because Michael never thought anyone would find it. Emily opened the messages, and there it was. Years of conversations with Linda, explicit messages, plans to see each other, lies coordinated to deceive both Emily and David, promises that someday they would be together for real without having to hide. I hate having to pretend we are just cousins. Emily read aloud and her voice trembled. Soon I am going to leave everything and we will leave together. She looked up at me. Do you see it, Mom? He was planning to leave me. All this time I was living in a lie thinking we had a future. And he was just waiting for the right moment to destroy me. Emily. No, Mom, do not tell me everything is going to be okay because it is not. 5 years of my life. 5 years I am not going to get back. 5 years I wasted with a man who never really loved me. She let herself fall to the floor, holding the phone, crying with a pain that came from the deepest part of her soul. And I knelt beside her, hugged her, and let her cry everything she needed to cry, because sometimes grief is necessary. Crying is necessary. Rage is necessary. Before you can heal, you first need to release all the poison that poisoned you. We spent hours in that room checking, discovering, crying. And with everything we found, the betrayal became bigger, crueler, more unforgiving. There were photos of trips Michael had supposedly taken alone for work, but there was Linda by his side smiling on paradise beaches while Emily stayed home, working, waiting for him, trusting him. There were emails where Michael and Linda talked about Emily and David as if they were obstacles, as if they were problems they would eventually solve. There were even conversations where Linda told Michael that David suspected, but she always knew how to calm him down, how to manipulate him, how to make him believe everything was fine. They are monsters, Emily said, and she was no longer crying. Now her eyes were dry, cold. They are monsters who played with our lives as if they were a game. Yes, I said. But the game is over. And now they are going to have to face the consequences. Emily looked at me. Do you think David is discovering all this too? Probably. And if he is half the man I think he is not going to sit idly by. Emily nodded, and for the first time all night, I saw something in her eyes that was not pain. It was determination. I am going to call my lawyer tomorrow first thing, she said. I am going to give him all this evidence, and I am going to make sure Michael does not keep anything, nothing of what we built together, because what we built was with my work, with my effort, with my trust, and the only thing he put in was lies. Good. I said, feeling pride for my daughter. That is exactly what you have to do. We sat there on the floor of that room, surrounded by evidence of a betrayal that had lasted years. And although the pain was immense, although the wound was deep, I knew my daughter was going to get out of this, because she was strong, because she was a fighter, because she had something Michael and Linda never had, dignity. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And you, what would you have done in my place? I woke up on the sofa in Emily's living room. I had not slept well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Michael's face smiling at me with that cruel arrogance when he told me no one would believe a crazy old woman. I saw the photos of him and Linda hugging in places where they should never have been together. I saw my daughter broken on the floor holding the evidence of a betrayal that had lasted years. But I also saw something else. I saw strength. I saw a woman who, despite the pain, was choosing to defend herself, was choosing not to stay silent, and that, in the middle of so much darkness, was a light. I got up slowly, trying not to make noise. Emily was sleeping in her room. It had taken her hours to fall asleep. I had heard her crying, pacing back and forth, sighing. But eventually, exhaustion overcame her. And now she needed that rest because the coming days were not going to be easy. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. The aroma filled the house, that comforting smell that always reminded me of quiet mornings, of days where the world still made sense. I poured 2 cups and sat by the window watching the city wake up. The birds were singing, the neighbors were leaving for work. Life went on indifferent to the pain inhabiting these walls. I heard steps behind me. It was Emily. Her hair was messy, her eyes swollen, her clothes wrinkled, but she was standing. And that was the important thing. "Good morning, honey," I said, extending a cup of coffee to her. "Good morning, Mom," she replied, taking the cup and sitting in front of me. We drank in silence for a few minutes, a silence that was not uncomfortable. It was a silence of understanding, of 2 women who knew that words sometimes are not enough to heal, but company is. "I called my lawyer," Emily said suddenly, "an hour ago. I sent him photos of everything we found last night. And what did he tell you? That I have a solid case, that with all that evidence, Michael has no way to defend himself, that I can file for divorce based on infidelity and keep the house, the car, everything we bought together. Because although many things are in both names, the proofs of his infidelity favor me." I nodded, feeling some relief. At least legally, my daughter was in control. "And how do you feel about that?" Emily looked down at her coffee cup. "I do not know, Mom. I should feel relieved, right? I should feel powerful. But I just feel empty. As if everything I worked for, everything I believed in, had been a lie. It was not a lie, honey. You loved for real. You were honest. You built something real. The fact that he did not live up to that love does not mean your love was fake." Emily looked up. Her eyes were full of tears, but also something else. Understanding. "Do you know what hurts me the most, Mom? Tell me." "That I trusted him completely. I opened my heart, my house, my life to him, and he used that trust to destroy me. I woke up every morning next to him, made him breakfast, asked him how he had slept, told him I loved him. And he smiled at me, kissed me, told me he loved me too. And all that time, all that damn time, he was thinking about her." Her voice broke, but she did not cry. It was as if she had no tears left. "Do you know how many times, Mom? How many times did I tell him I wanted to have a baby with him? How many times did I dream of starting a family? And he always told me not yet to wait a little longer, that he wanted to be more financially stable. And I believed him. I thought he was responsible, that he was thinking about our future. But now I understand that he was only buying time. Time to be with her, without having to deal with a child that would tie him to me forever." I closed my eyes, feeling the rage grow inside me. Rage against Michael. Rage against Linda. Rage against everyone who believes they have the right to play with people's feelings as if they were tokens on a board. "Emily," I said, taking her hands, "listen to me well. What Michael did is unforgivable, and what Linda did too. But you cannot let that define you. You cannot let their betrayal steal your ability to trust again, to love again, to dream again. How am I going to trust anyone again, Mom? How am I going to be able to believe another man if the man who swore to love me lied to me for years? I do not know," I admitted. "But I know that today's pain is not going to be forever's pain. I know you are going to heal little by little. And I know that when the time comes, when the right person comes, you will know how to recognize them, because now you know what to look for. Now you know what signs to ignore and which ones to heed." Emily nodded slowly, processing my words. "Do you think David is going through the same thing? I am sure." At that moment, as if the universe had heard our conversation, Emily's phone rang. It was a message from David. Emily read it out loud. "Emily, it is David. I hope you are okay considering. Last night I checked Linda's phone. I found everything. Messages, photos, everything. My lawyer is already preparing the divorce papers. Linda is going to be left with nothing. I wanted you to know, and I wanted to thank you and your mom for having the courage to show me the truth. I know it was not easy, but you freed me from a lie I had been carrying for years. If you need to talk or if you need help with the legal process, I am here. You are not alone in this." Emily finished reading the message and stared at the screen in silence. "He is a good man," I said. "Yes," Emily replied. "He is, and Linda destroyed him, just like Michael destroyed me. But they did not leave you destroyed," I told her. "They left you wounded, which is different. Because wounds heal, and when they heal, they make you stronger." Emily replied to David, "Thanks for writing, David. I also found a lot of things last night. Things I did not know if I wanted to know, but needed to know. My lawyer is also preparing everything. And you are right. We are not alone. We have each other as witnesses that we were not crazy, that our suspicions were real. Thank you for that." She left the phone on the table and looked at me. "Do you think Michael will try to contact me?" "Probably. Men like him always try to come back. They always try to manipulate, convince, make you doubt your decision. I am not going to answer him." "Good. I blocked his number last night. I blocked Linda too. I do not want to know anything about them, ever again. That is the best decision you could make." Emily took a deep breath and got up from the table. "I am going to shower. I am going to get ready. And I am going to go see my lawyer personally. I want to make sure everything is in order. I want to make sure Michael cannot hurt me anymore." I watched her walk toward the bathroom with firm, determined steps, and I felt pride. Because my daughter, despite being broken, was not giving up. She was getting up. While I waited, I started cleaning the house. I picked up the coffee cups, washed the dishes, tidied the living room. And when I reached the bedroom, I saw all the evidence we had found the night before, still scattered on the bed. The photos, the receipts, the phone. I picked them up carefully and put them in a box that Emily would take to her lawyer, a box full of truths that for years had been hidden. And while I closed that box, I thought about something. I thought about how many women there are in the world who are living lies without knowing it. How many are trusting men who do not deserve that trust? How many are ignoring signs because they are afraid of what they might discover? And I thought about how important it is to listen to that inner voice. That voice that tells you something is not right. That voice that makes you uncomfortable when you see things that do not add up. Because that voice oftentimes is the one that saves you. Emily came out of the bathroom an hour later. She had fixed herself up, put on makeup, done her hair. She wore a simple but elegant dress, and although her eyes still showed traces of crying, they also showed determination. "I am ready," she told me. "Do you want me to go with you?" "No, Mom. I need to do this alone. But thank you for everything, for being here, for not judging me, for protecting me, for being the mother you have always been." I hugged her tight as when she was a little girl and afraid of the dark, as tight as when she was a teenager and suffered her first heartbreak, as tight as now when she was facing the worst betrayal of her life. "I will always be here, honey, always." Emily left for her appointment with the lawyer, and I stayed at the house waiting, thinking, processing everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. I had arrived at that house to organize a surprise party, and I had ended up witnessing a betrayal that had been happening for years. I had been insulted, underestimated, called a crazy old woman by a man who thought he could get away with it. But that man had been wrong, because I was not a crazy old woman. I was a mother, A woman, a guardian of the truth, and I had done the right thing. I had closed that door. I had made those calls. I had put the cards on the table. And now my daughter and David had the chance to rebuild their lives, to heal, to start over. And Michael and Linda would have to face the consequences of their actions, because life sooner or later always collects its debts. And the truth, no matter how much it hurts, is always better than a lie. 2 weeks passed since that day, 2 weeks in which Emily's life changed completely, 2 weeks in which the lawyers moved fast, in which papers were signed, in which truths came to light officially. 2 weeks in which my daughter learned that losing everything does not mean being left with nothing, as long as you keep your dignity. I kept visiting her every day. Sometimes I stayed over to sleep. Other times I just spent a few hours making her food, listening to her, holding her when the weight of everything became too much. Because the process of a divorce is not just legal, it is emotional, it is heartbreaking. It is like ripping out roots that had been growing for years, even if those roots were poisoned. Emily had filed for divorce on grounds of adultery. Her lawyer had been clear. With all the evidence they had, Michael had no possible defense. The photos, the messages, the receipts, the secret phone, everything pointed to an infidelity sustained for years. And in cases like this, the law favors the affected party. But Michael was not going to give up easily. One afternoon, while Emily and I were in the living room reviewing some documents the lawyer had sent her, the doorbell rang. Emily tensed immediately. "Are you expecting someone?" I asked her. "No," she replied with a trembling voice. I got up and walked to the window. I looked out, and there he was, Michael, standing in front of the door with a bouquet of flowers in his hands and an expression that tried to look remorseful. "It is him," I told Emily. She went pale. "I do not want to see him." "You do not have to." But Michael knocked again, and then he shouted, "Emily, I know you are there. Please let me speak with you. Just 5 minutes." Emily closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "I am going to talk to him," she said, "but I am going to do it here, at the door. He is not entering this house ever again. Are you sure?" "Yes, I need to do it. I need to look him in the eye and tell him everything I have been keeping inside." I nodded and walked her to the door. Emily opened it, and there was Michael, with his hair perfectly combed, his clothes impeccable, the flowers in his hands as if that could erase 3 years of lies. "Emily," he said, and his voice sounded soft, almost broken. "Thank you for opening." "What do you want?" Emily interrupted him, and her voice was cold, distant. "I want to talk to you. I want to explain. There is nothing to explain. I found everything. The photos, the messages, everything." Michael looked down. "I know I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But—" "A mistake?" Emily let out a bitter laugh. "Do you call 3 years of infidelity a mistake? 3 years of lying to my face every day? 3 years of sleeping with me while you planned a future with her? Emily, please." "No." She interrupted him again. "Do not tell me, please. Do not tell me you are sorry. Do not bring me flowers as if that is going to fix anything, because it is not. Nothing you say or do is going to change what you did." Michael took a step toward her, but Emily raised a hand, stopping him. "Do not come closer. I just want you to listen to me. I just want you to understand that you are the one I love." What was Linda then? She was just a distraction. It was a weakness. "But my heart has always been with you." Emily stared at him, and then with a voice so calm it gave me chills, she said, "Do you know what, Michael, maybe at some point that would have mattered to me. Maybe 2 weeks ago, if you had told me that, I would have doubted. I would have considered forgiving you, because that is how stupid I was. That is how blind I was. But now, after seeing the photos of you two hugging on beaches where you told me you were working, after reading the messages where you mocked me and David, after understanding that I was never your priority, After all that, I do not care what you feel anymore. I do not care what you want anymore. I only care about one thing, that you get out of my life forever." Michael looked at her shocked, as if he could not believe Emily was talking to him that way. "Emily, you cannot be serious. We are a marriage. We have been together for 5 years. You cannot throw all that away." "I did not throw anything away, Michael." "You did. You destroyed this marriage the day you decided to sleep with your cousin. You destroyed it every time you lied to me. Every time you made me feel guilty for suspecting. Every time you told me I was crazy for feeling that something was not right. You destroyed this, not me." Michael tried to take her hand, but Emily pulled it away immediately. "Do not touch me. Emily, please give me a chance. We can go to therapy. We can fix this. I am going to change. I swear, I am going to do whatever is necessary to regain your trust. I do not want your change. I do not want your therapy. I do not want anything from you. I just want you to sign the divorce papers and leave." Michael looked at her with eyes full of tears, and for a moment he almost seemed like a repentant man. But Emily was no longer fooled by appearances. And the house, Michael asked changing tactics. "Are you going to keep everything just like that?" "Yes," Emily replied, "because I was the one who worked to buy this house. I was the one who put down the deposit money. I was the one who paid the monthly payments while you spent your salary taking Linda to expensive hotels. So yes, I am going to keep this house, and the car, and everything we bought together, because you deserve nothing." Michael clenched his fists, and for the first time I saw something in his eyes that was not regret. It was rage. "This is not going to stay like this," he said, and his voice sounded threatening. "My lawyer is going to fight. I am going to make sure you do not keep everything." "Fight all you want," Emily replied without flinching. "But you are going to lose, because I have evidence. I have witnesses. I have everything I need to prove that you were an unfaithful, lying, and manipulative husband. And when the judge sees all that, you are going to be left with nothing." Michael threw the flowers on the floor. "You are a bitch," he said, and that word came out of his mouth like poison. But Emily did not back down. She did not break. She just looked at him with a tranquility I did not know she had. "Maybe," she said, "but I am a bitch with dignity, and that is more than you will ever have." Michael turned around and walked toward his car. Before getting in, he turned one last time and shouted, "You are going to regret this, Emily. You are going to end up alone. No one is going to love you like I loved you." Emily smiled. It was a sad smile, but also liberating. "If that is how you love me, Michael, then I prefer to be alone." Michael got in the car and drove off, leaving the flowers lying on the ground. Emily closed the door and leaned against it. She took a deep breath and then looked at me. "I did it, Mom. I told him everything and I did not break." I hugged her tight. "I am so proud of you, honey." She let herself be hugged, and although she did not cry, I felt how her body trembled, not from fear, but from relief. The following days were a whirlwind of meetings with lawyers, signing documents, making declarations. The legal process moved fast. Michael tried to fight for the house, but the evidence was overwhelming. His infidelity was documented, and under the law, Emily had the right to keep the assets acquired during the marriage. Linda, for her part, was also facing her own hell. David had kept his word. He filed for divorce. And since he had been the one who provided the money for the business they had together, he managed to keep everything. Linda lost the house. She lost the business. She lost everything. One day, David wrote to Emily, "The divorce is almost ready. Linda moved in with her mother. She tried to convince me to forgive her. She cried. She begged. But I already made my decision, and I feel at peace. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe." Emily replied, "I am glad you are at peace, David. You deserve it." Michael also tried to convince me. He came to the house with flowers and promises, but I also already made my decision. And like you, I feel like I can breathe again, David replied. Would you like to get coffee someday? Not as a date, just as two people who went through the same thing and who maybe can help each other heal. Emily showed me the message. What do you think, Mom? I think David is a good man, and there is nothing wrong with two wounded people supporting each other, but only you know if you are ready for that. Emily thought for a moment and then wrote, I would like that. How about this weekend? And that is how, in the midst of loss, something new began to be born. Not a romance. Not yet. But a friendship. A mutual understanding. A safe space where two people who had been betrayed could talk without being judged. Emily lost her marriage. She lost 5 years of her life. She lost the illusion of a future she had planned with so much love. But she did not lose her dignity. She did not lose her strength. She did not lose her ability to get up. And that in the middle of all the pain was the most important thing, because when you face betrayal with your head held high, when you speak your truth without trembling, when you choose your well-being over the comfort of maintaining a lie, you are winning, even if you do not feel it in the moment. You are winning your freedom, your peace, your right to start over. And my daughter, my beautiful and brave daughter, had understood it. A month after that day when I locked Michael and Linda in the bathroom, life had taken a different rhythm. Emily had signed the final divorce papers. The house was now completely hers. The car, too. Michael was left with practically nothing, just as she had predicted. His lawyer tried to fight, but the evidence was too strong. And in the end, Michael had to accept defeat. I continued to visit Emily regularly, but now the visits were different. I no longer arrived to comfort her while she cried. I arrived to drink coffee while she told me about her plans, about how she was redecorating the house, making it hers, about how she was thinking of resuming her clothing store project that she had abandoned years ago because Michael always told her it was not the right time. My daughter was healing, slowly, painfully, but she was healing. And David had become a constant presence in that healing process. They saw each other often. They drank coffee. They walked in the park. They talked for hours about what they had lived, about how they felt, about how it was possible that two people who had shared their lives with them had betrayed them in that way. And in those conversations, they found something they had not had in a long time: understanding. One afternoon, Emily arrived at my house. I was in the garden watering the plants when I heard her car park. She came out with a smile on her face, a genuine smile, one of those I had not seen in a long time. "Hi, Mom," she said, giving me a kiss on the cheek. "Hi, honey, you look good. I feel good," she replied, and she meant it. We went into the house and sat in the living room. I poured her a glass of cold water and sat in front of her. Did something happen? I asked, noting there was something different about her, something light. "Yes," she said, and her eyes shone. "Today I saw Linda." I tensed immediately. "Where?" "At the supermarket. She was in the vegetable section. I was walking in and I saw her. And for a moment I thought about turning around and getting out of there. But then I thought, why should I be the one to run away? I did not do anything wrong." So I kept walking. "And did she see you?" "Yes." "We saw each other. And do you know what, Mom? It was revealing." "What do you mean?" Emily took a sip of water and sighed. Linda looked finished. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes wrinkled, deep dark circles under her eyes. She was not the impeccable woman she used to be. And when she saw me, she went pale. She tried to hide behind a shelf, but it was too late. I had already seen her. "Did you talk to her?" "No," but she talked to me. She approached with her head down and said, "Emily, I am so sorry. I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I am sorry." "And what did you say to her?" Emily looked at me. "I told her the truth, Mom. I told her, I do not forgive you, and I probably never will. because what you did is unforgivable. But I do not hate you either, because hating you would be giving too much importance to someone who means nothing in my life anymore. So I just hope you learn to live with what you did. Because I already learned to live without you and without Michael. I felt a lump in my throat, because those words did not come from a place of pain. They came from a place of clarity, of acceptance, of peace. And what did she say? Nothing. She just stayed there looking at me with eyes full of tears. And then I kept walking, because I had nothing else to say to her. Emily put the glass on the table and took my hands. Do you know what I understood today, Mom? I understood that I do not need Linda to suffer to feel better. I do not need Michael to regret to heal, because my healing does not depend on them. It depends on me, on my ability to let go of what hurt me, on my ability to move forward without carrying that resentment. That is wisdom, honey. I told her, feeling pride and emotion. That is exactly what you needed to understand. And I learned it from you, Mom. From the way you handled everything that day. You could have screamed at Michael. You could have hit Linda. You could have made a scene. But you did not. You just did what was necessary. You locked them in. You called the right people. And you let the truth speak for itself. You did not need revenge. Because you knew time would take care of justice. I nodded, remembering that moment, remembering the temptation I had to scream at them, to insult them, to make them feel even a fraction of the pain they had caused, but also remembering the conscious decision I made not to, because revenge never brings peace. It only brings more pain. Time always does justice, honey, I told her, always. Maybe not in the way we expect, maybe not as fast as we would like, but it always does. Emily nodded. Linda lost her marriage, she lost her house, she lost her business, and now she lives with her mother in a small room working in a store to pay her debts. David told me. He says the last time he saw her, she tried to ask for his forgiveness too, but he told her the same thing I did. That he did not hate her, but he did not forgive her either, and that she would have to learn to live with the consequences of her actions. And Michael is also facing his consequences. He lost the house, he lost the car, he is living in a small apartment sharing with a coworker, and Linda, after everything that happened, did not want to stay with him. Because she also understood something, that a man who is capable of cheating on his wife is capable of cheating on anyone. So now they are both alone, each carrying the weight of what they did. That is poetic justice, I said. They sought their happiness at the cost of your happiness, and in the end they found neither one nor the other. Exactly, Emily said. And I, on the other hand, am finding my peace. I am rebuilding my life. I am learning to trust again, in myself, in the future, and maybe someday in another person. I looked at her with curiosity. Are you talking about David? Emily blushed a little. I do not know, Mom. David is... he is wonderful. He is kind, respectful, understanding. We've spent a lot of time together, and I feel comfortable with him. More comfortable than I ever felt with Michael. But I am also scared. Scared to trust again. Scared to open my heart again and get hurt again. That fear is normal, honey, and it is healthy, because it means you are being careful, that you are not jumping into something without thinking. But you also have to remember that not all men are like Michael. Not all relationships end in betrayal. And David, until now, has shown you to be different. I know. And that is why I am taking things calmly, without rushing, just letting things flow. That is wise. Emily smiled. He invited me to dinner next weekend, to a restaurant, like a real date, and I said yes. I felt joy for my daughter, because after so much darkness, she was finally allowing herself to see a little light. I am very happy, honey. You deserve it. You deserve to be happy. You deserve a man who values you, who respects you, who loves you for real. Thanks, Mom. for everything, for having been there that day, for not hesitating to lock them in, for making those calls, because if you had not done that, maybe I would still be living in that lie. Maybe I would still be married to Michael, believing we were happy while he kept seeing Linda behind my back. I did what any mother would do, honey, protect you, even if that meant showing you a painful truth. But not all mothers would do it, Mom. There are mothers who prefer silence, who prefer not to get involved, who prefer to let their daughters find things out for themselves, even if that means more pain. But not you. You had the courage to act, and that saved me. I hugged her tight, and in that hug I felt that all the pain we had gone through during the last month was worth it, because my daughter was okay. She was healing. She was finding her way. The following days were quieter. Emily moved on with her life. She started the paperwork to open her clothing store. David helped her with some contacts, with some advice, and little by little, the friendship between them turned into something more. It was not a movie romance. There were no grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was something subtle, natural, like two people who, after being hurt, found each other and decided to give themselves a chance, with calm, with respect, with honesty. And I, from my place as a mother, observed everything with gratitude because I knew my daughter was in good hands, not only in David's hands, but in her own hands, because she had learned to value herself, to respect herself, not to settle for less than she deserved. One day while we were having coffee at her house, Emily told me something I will never forget. Mom, did you ever ask yourself what I would have done in your place that day when you found me in the bathroom with Michael and Linda? And I did not answer you, because I did not know. But now I do know. What would you have done exactly the same as you? Because I understand now that sometimes the most loving act you can do for someone is to show them the truth, even if it hurts, even if it destroys. Because a painful truth is always better than a comfortable lie. I smiled, feeling that my daughter had grown, not only in age, but in wisdom. That is right, honey. That is right. And while I looked at her, I thought about how life has a strange way of balancing things. Michael and Linda had lost everything, not because I took revenge, not because Emily and David destroyed them, but because the natural consequences of their actions caught up with them. Because when you build your happiness on lies, on betrayal, on the pain of others, sooner or later that house collapses, and there is no way to hold it up. And we, the ones who were hurt, learned something valuable. We learned that justice does not always need screams, does not always need revenge. Sometimes it only needs time and truth, and the peace of mind of knowing you did the right thing. I locked two traitors in a bathroom not to punish them, but to protect my daughter, to give her the chance to see with her own eyes what I had already seen. And that decision, that silent gesture, changed everything. Because sometimes the most powerful act is the simplest. Close a door, make two calls, and let the truth speak. 6 months had passed since that day that changed everything. 6 months in which life had taken paths none of us had imagined. Emily had opened her clothing store. It was small, but it was growing. Every day more customers arrived, attracted by her good taste, by her fair prices, by the warmth with which she served them. My daughter had found her purpose, and that made her shine in a way Michael could never achieve. David and she were officially a couple. They had not rushed. They had taken their time to get to know each other, to heal together, to build something solid on foundations of honesty and respect. And seeing them together was seeing two people who had finally found what they deserved, a true love, without lies, without betrayals, without masks. I continued to visit Emily regularly, but now the visits were different. I no longer arrived to console. I arrived to celebrate, to laugh, to plan, to enjoy seeing my daughter happy. But one day, everything changed again. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was at my house preparing dinner when my phone rang. It was Emily, Mom. Her voice sounded strange. Not sad, but not happy either. It was bewildered. What is wrong, honey? I just received a call. From Michael. My blood ran cold. What did he want? He wants to see me. He says it is urgent, that he needs to talk to me. And what did you say to him? That I have nothing to talk about with him. But he insisted. He said that. He said he is sick, Mom, that he needs my help. I frowned. Sick with what he did not want to tell me on the phone. He just said he needed to see me. One last time. I sighed. I knew men like Michael. They always tried to return. They always looked for one last chance. They always had an excuse, a plea, a trap. Do you want to see him? Emily was silent for a moment. I do not know, Mom. A part of me says no, that I owe him nothing, that I already closed that chapter. But another part is curious, wants to know what happened to him, how he is, not because I care in a romantic sense, but because I do not know. Maybe I need that final closure. If you decide to see him, do not go alone. I want to go with you. Okay, I will tell him he can come to the store tomorrow at noon when there are people around. I do not want to be alone with him. Sounds good to me. I will be there. That night, I could not sleep well. I thought about Michael. What was he intending? What game was he playing now? Because manipulators never change. They only refine their strategies. The next day, I arrived at Emily's store early. She was attending to a customer, showing her some dresses. When she finished, she approached me. Are you ready? I asked her. As much as I can be. At 12 o'clock sharp, Michael arrived. I saw him through the store glass before he entered, and I almost did not recognize him. The man who had been my son-in-law, the man who had smiled arrogantly while calling me a crazy old woman, no longer existed. In his place was a gaunt man with a pale face, deep dark circles, clothes that were too big for him, as if he had lost a lot of weight in a short time. He entered the store slowly. He looked at Emily, and in his eyes there was something I had never seen before. Defeat. Hello, Emily, he said, and his voice sounded weak, dull. Hello, Michael, she replied, keeping her distance. You said you needed to talk to me. Here I am, but you have 10 minutes, no more. Michael looked around. He saw the customers who were looking at clothes. He saw me standing next to Emily with my arms crossed, and he knew he was not going to get the privacy he probably expected. Can we talk outside? He asked. No, Emily said firmly. Here is fine. Say what you have to say. Michael looked down, took a deep breath, and when he looked at her again, his eyes were full of tears. I am sick, Emily. Very sick. With what cancer? Stomach cancer. Advanced stage. The silence that followed was dense. Emily looked at him processing the information, and I looked at him, too, trying to detect if this was another one of his lies. But something in the way he said it, in the fragility of his body, made me think that this time he was telling the truth. How long? Emily asked. The doctors say maybe 6 months, maybe a year. Depends on how I respond to treatment. But I do not have money for treatment, Emily. I lost everything. The job, the apartment, everything. I am living with my sister and she can barely help me. Emily stared at him. And you are telling me this because you want me to help you? Michael nodded, wiping his tears. I know I have no right. I know I deserve nothing from you. But I have no one else. Please, Emily, please. My daughter said nothing for a moment, and I could see the conflict in her eyes, the part of her that still remembered the man she had fallen in love with, and the part of her that remembered the man who had betrayed her for years. Finally, she spoke. I am sorry, Michael. I am sorry you are sick. I truly am, but I am not going to help you. Michael looked at her surprised. Emily, please. No. She interrupted him. Listen to me well. For 5 years, I was by your side. I supported you. I believed you. I loved you. and you paid me with lies, with betrayal, with humiliation. Now you come here sick, asking for help, and you want me, after everything you did to me, to save you. But do you know what, Michael? I am not your salvation. I never was, and I am not going to do it now. Emily, I am begging you, and I begged you so many times. I begged you to tell me the truth when I found those messages. I begged you to stop making me feel crazy when my instinct told me something was wrong. I begged you to respect me, and you did not. So now, when you are the one begging, do not expect me to be different from what you were with me." Michael collapsed. He covered his face with his hands and began to cry. And for a moment, I almost felt pity for him. Almost. But then I remembered all the pain he had caused my daughter, and that pity vanished. And Linda Emily asked, "Can she not help you?" Michael looked up, and on his face there was bitterness. "Linda left me. When I lost the money, when I lost everything. She left. She said she could not be with a man who had nothing to offer her. She said what we had was a mistake, and she left without looking back." There it was. Poetic justice at its finest. The man who had betrayed his wife for her cousin was now abandoned by that same cousin when he no longer had anything to give her. "So now you know how it feels," Emily said, and her voice was calm but firm. "Now you know what it is to be abandoned by someone you trusted. Now you know what it is to be left alone, without support, without love, without nothing. And maybe, just maybe, that will help you understand a fraction of the pain you caused me." Michael looked at her with pleading eyes. "Emily, please, I know I do not deserve your forgiveness, but I need your help. I have no one else. And I had no one either when you betrayed me. I only had my mom and myself, and I learned that was enough. So I wish you the best, Michael. I hope you find the help you need, but it is not going to be from me." Michael stood there, broken, and then without saying anything else, he turned around and left the store. I watched him walk down the street, hunched over, defeated, alone. And I thought about how life has a way of balancing things, not always the way we expect, but always the way we need. Emily turned to me. Her eyes were full of tears, but her face was serene. "Did I do right, Mom?" "You did the right thing, honey. You are not responsible for saving him. He made his decisions, and now he is facing the consequences." She nodded. "I know I should feel sorry for him, and maybe a small part of me does, but most of me just feels peace because I know I closed that door forever, and I am not going to open it again." That night, Emily called me. She told me that David had stopped by the store after Michael left, that she had told him everything, and that David had hugged her and told her he was proud of her, that what she had done required a strength that very few people have. Do you know what he told me? Mom Emily told me. He told me that he had also seen Linda a few weeks ago, that she was working at a convenience store earning minimum wage, living in a small room, that she had tried to talk to him, ask for forgiveness, ask for help, and that he told her exactly the same thing I told Michael, that he felt sorry for her, but he was not going to help her, because she had made her decisions and now she had to live with them. "David is a good man," I told her. "He is Mom. And I think I finally understand something. I understand that people who hurt us do not always receive immediate punishment. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes it takes months, but eventually life charges them. And when it does, it is in a way that no human revenge could equal. That is right, honey. Life always collects its debts. Days passed, and then weeks. And one day, Emily received a call from Michael's sister. Michael had died. The cancer had advanced faster than doctors had predicted. He died alone, in a public hospital, without anyone by his side. Emily cried when she received the news, not because she still loved him, but because it is sad to see how a life is wasted. How a man who could have had everything ended up with nothing, by his own decisions, by his own lies. We went to the funeral, not because Michael deserved it, but because Emily needed that final closure. She needed to see that that chapter of her life had ended completely. The funeral was small. Only his sister was there, some distant cousins, and us. Linda did not go. No one knew where she was. No one cared enough to look for her. When they lowered the coffin, Emily approached, and in a low voice she said, "You once called me crazy when I suspected you. Years later, I was building a new life while you were dying alone in a hospital. Life always collects its debts, Michael. Always." And she turned around and walked away without looking back. That night, we had dinner together at my house, Emily, David, and I, and for the first time in a long time, the conversation did not revolve around the past. It revolved around the future, around the plans for the store, around the possibility of David and Emily moving in together, around the possibility that someday I would be a grandmother. And while I listened to them talk, smile, dream, I thought about how it had all started, with a key, with a closed door, with 2 phone calls, and I thought about how sometimes the smallest act can change the course of a whole life. Because if I had not arrived early that day, if I had not opened that door, if I had not found them, Emily would still be living in a lie, and Michael and Linda would still be destroying lives without consequences. But I arrived. I found them. I locked them in, and I made those calls, and the truth came to light, and justice, although it took time, arrived, not with revenge, not with screams, not with violence, but with something much more powerful, natural consequences. Because when you build your happiness on lies, on betrayal, on the pain of others, sooner or later everything collapses, and you are left alone with your decisions, with your regrets, with your emptiness, and that, in the end, is the most perfect justice of all. 2 years have passed since that day that changed our lives forever. 2 years since I arrived at my daughter's house to organize a surprise party that never happened. 2 years since I opened a door and found a truth no one wanted to see. 2 years since I turned a key and changed the destiny of 4 people. And now, sitting in the garden of my house with a cup of coffee in my hands and the afternoon sun caressing my face, I can look back and understand that everything had a purpose, that every decision I took that day, although painful, was necessary. Emily is happy, truly happy. Her clothing store grew more than she ever imagined. Now she has 2 branches and is planning to open a 3rd. She became a successful, respected, admired businesswoman. But more important than that, she became a woman who knows her worth, who does not negotiate her dignity, who does not accept crumbs disguised as love. And David is by her side. They got married 6 months ago. It was a small, intimate wedding full of people who truly love them. I was there, of course, in the front row, watching my daughter walk down the aisle with a smile that lit up the whole room. A smile that was not of illusion. It was of certainty, of peace, of knowing that this time she was choosing well. When the judge asked them if they accepted to love and respect each other every day of their lives, both said yes with a conviction that only people who know what it is to lose have, who know what it is to be betrayed, and who therefore value every moment of honesty, every gesture of respect, every word of truth. After the ceremony, Emily approached me, took my hands, and with tears in her eyes said to me, "Thank you, Mom, for everything, for saving me that day, for not being afraid to show me the truth, for teaching me that true love does not hurt, that true love does not lie, that true love does not betray." I hugged her tight and whispered in her ear, "You have nothing to thank me for, daughter. I only did what any mother who loves her daughter would do. I protected you, even if that meant showing you something painful." And while I hugged her, I thought about all the mothers in the world who see things they do not like, who suspect things they do not want to confirm, who have that inner voice that tells them something is not right with the man sleeping next to their daughter, but who stay silent, out of fear, out of not wanting to be meddling, out of not wanting to ruin the illusion of happiness. And I thought about how many daughters would have been saved from years of pain if their mothers had had the courage to speak, to act, to show the truth. I'm not saying that all suspicions are true. I'm not saying that all mothers should become private investigators, but I am saying that when something does not feel right, when something disturbs you, when you see signs that do not add up, you have the moral duty to say it, not to remain silent, because silence is often an accomplice to harm. A few weeks ago, Emily gave me news that filled my heart with joy. She is pregnant. She's going to have a girl, and she already chose her name. Hope. Because that was what I found after so much darkness, Mom, she told me. Hope. Hope that things could get better. Hope that I could trust again. Hope that I could be happy again. And when that girl is born, my granddaughter, I am going to hold her in my arms. I am going to look her in the eye. And I am going to promise her the same thing I promised her mother the day she was born, that I will always protect her, that I will always tell her the truth, even if it hurts, that I will always be there for her through thick and thin. Because that is what the women of our family do. We hold each other up. We take care of each other. We tell each other the truths no one else wants to say. Sometimes I think about Michael and how he ended up, alone, sick, regretful. And I feel no satisfaction for his suffering. But I feel no guilt either, because he chose his path. He decided to betray. He decided to lie. He decided to build his happiness on my daughter's pain, and life with its infinite wisdom charged him. Not because I cursed him, not because Emily wished him harm, but because that is how the universe works. What you sow, you reap. And Michael sowed lies, betrayal, selfishness, and he reaped loneliness, sickness, abandonment. I also think about Linda. I do not know where she is now. I do not know how she is. And I do not care too much either, because people who betray those who trust them, who destroy marriages, who play with the feelings of others as if it were a game, eventually end up alone. Because no one wants to be close to someone who cannot be trusted. David told me recently that he heard from third parties that Linda tried to get back with him, that she sent him messages, letters, that she appeared at his work begging for a chance. But he did not give in, because he learned just like Emily that forgiving someone who betrayed you is not a sign of strength. It is a sign of lack of self-love. He told her the same thing Emily told Michael David told me, that he was sorry she was alone, that he was sorry she was suffering, but that those were the consequences of her decisions, and that he had already closed that door forever. And I felt proud of him, because good men, the ones worth it, are the ones who know when to walk forward without looking back. Now, when I see Emily and David together, I see something I never saw in Emily's marriage with Michael. I see respect. I see honesty. I see two people who take care of each other, who communicate, who have no secrets, who build their relationship on solid foundations, not on fragile lies. And I know that when Hope is born, she is going to grow up in a home full of true love, not of appearances, not of masks, but of real love, the kind that does not need to hide. Sometimes when I am alone, I think about that day, about how everything could have been different if I had arrived 5 minutes later, or if I had decided not to go to Emily's house that day, or if I had ignored the noises coming from the bathroom. But I did not. I arrived on time. I opened that door. I saw what I had to see, and I acted, and that action, that moment of courage, saved my daughter from years of pain, gave her the chance to get out of a lie and enter a truth, gave her the chance to rebuild her life, to find real love, to be happy. And if I had to do it again, I would do it exactly the same without hesitation. Because protecting your daughter is not just feeding her when she is hungry or curing her when she is sick. It is also showing her the truths no one else is going to show her, even if those truths hurt, even if those truths destroy, because a painful truth is always better than a comfortable lie. Today, while I drink my coffee in this garden I have tended for so many years, I think about all the women who are going through what Emily went through. Women who feel something is not right in their marriages. Women who see signs but are afraid to confirm them. Women who are living lies without knowing it. And if I could tell them something, I would tell them this: trust your intuition. That inner voice that tells you something does not add up, that something does not feel right. It is not crazy. It is not exaggerating. It is trying to protect you. And when that voice speaks, listen to it. Investigate. Ask. Seek the truth. Even if you are afraid of what you might find, because living in a lie is not living. It is surviving. And you deserve more than that. You deserve a love that does not have to hide, a love that does not have to lie, a love that does not have to betray. And if you discover that the person you love has been lying to you, remember this: the pain you feel today is not permanent. It is temporary. And on the other side of that pain, there is a new life waiting for you, a life where you can trust again, where you can love again, where you can be happy again. But first you have to have the courage to let go of what hurts you, even if it hurts, even if you are afraid, even if you do not know what comes next, because the future, although uncertain, is always better than a present full of lies. And to the mothers reading this who see things they do not like in their daughters' relationships, I tell you, do not stay silent. Do not ignore that inner voice. Do not be afraid to be called meddling, because protecting your daughter is your duty. And sometimes that means showing her truths no one else is going to show her. I locked 2 traitors in a bathroom, I made 2 phone calls, and I changed the course of my daughter's life. Was it easy? No. Was it painful? Yes. Was it worth it? Absolutely, because now my daughter is happy, truly happy, and she is building a family on solid foundations. And she is going to teach her daughter the same values I taught her: dignity, respect, self-love. And when Hope grows up, she will know she comes from a line of strong women, women who do not accept crumbs, women who do not negotiate their dignity, women who hold each other up, who take care of each other, who tell each other the truth. And that is going to be my legacy. Not money, not properties, but values, strength, wisdom. I finish my coffee. The sun is setting on the horizon, painting the sky oranges and pinks. And I think about how lucky I am to have had the courage to act that day, to have protected my daughter, to have witnessed her transformation from a broken woman to a whole woman. And I think about Michael, in his last look when he called me a crazy old woman, and I smile, because that crazy old woman was the one who uncovered his lie, the one who protected her daughter, the one who changed everything. And if I could see him again, I would tell him, "You underestimated the wrong woman, Michael," because a mother who protects her daughter is the most powerful force in the universe. And you learned that too late. I get up from my chair, enter the house, and get ready to go to dinner with Emily and David, because today is a special day. Today they are going to reveal the design of Hope's room, and they want me to be there, because I am part of this family, of this new family that was born from the ashes of a lie. And while I drive to her house, I think about what I am going to tell my granddaughter when she is born. I am going to tell her this story, not to fill her with fear, but to teach her that the women of our family do not give up. They do not accept less than they deserve, and always, always, they tell the truth, because the truth, although it hurts, always sets you free. And I freed my daughter, with a key, with 2 calls, with the courage to act when others would have been silent. And if my story helps a single woman to open her eyes, if it helps a single mother to have the courage to protect her daughter, if it helps a single person to understand that they deserve more than lies, then everything will have been worth it. Because in the end, that is what life is about. Not accumulating things, but taking care of the people you love, protecting them, holding them, telling them the truth, even if it hurts. And I did that, and I would do it again, 1,000 times. Because I am Sophia Miller. I am 59 years old, and this was the story I needed to tell. The story of how a crazy old woman saved her daughter. The story of how a key changed a destiny. The story of how the truth always finds a way to come to light. And the story of how justice, although it takes time, always arrives. Thank you for listening to the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and activate the bell to listen to more stories of women who transformed their pain into wisdom. Every day, a woman a life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change a whole day. May God bless you, and until next time.